Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Mucking Fun Day, and boys, it's the muckingest of fun days you'll ever have. We've got Raj here with a power outage, so he's talking to us on a phone, and he's going to be a PNG tuber today. So get ready for some pictures. Then we've got some news stories, of course, from the weekend and today. So welcome to Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we started. We haven't had any caffeine, and we also don't have any power, it seems. So let's get into those headlines quickly before all our batteries die. Today on Before Coffee, heroic crew of North Sea crash ship triggered crucial firefighting system.
And we had U.S. tornadoes, wildfire, and dust storms leave 40 dead and staggering damage.
Macron says French-British blueprint doesn't foresee deploying a mass of soldiers in Ukraine.
And we have a measles update in the U.S. Measles remain in a danger to health even years after an infection.
In culture news, what do we really know about St. Patrick's Day?
And speaking of St. Patrick's Day, it's National Corned Beef and Cabbage Day here in the dark on March 17th, 2025 on Before Coffee and Before Light.
Nothing sucks more than waking up and then realizing you're going to be in the dark for a while, because I wake up Raj at 4 a.m. So he's not exactly in the time when the sun's come up, you know. The sun is just peeking above the clouds maybe somewhere. But usually the sun doesn't come up this early. Let's roll the segue wheel
Monday too,
so we can get our segue settled. Yeah. I love when it works so that I don't have to worry about it. All right, you're gonna have to write me a limerick. Can you see to write a limerick?
I have to light the candle again.
Light the candle. Get the oil lamp lit. Your kerosene lamp. Okay. Well, while you figure that out, go into my first story, which is a bit sarcastic, I think. It's from The Scotsman by Amy Watson. Heroic crew of North Sea crash and heroic is in quotations here, has triggered a crucial firefighting system. Just one cargo tank containing jet fuel was damaged thanks to the efforts on board the vessel, says Maritime Company. The heroic crew of the U.S. oil tanker struck in the North Sea triggered a crucial firefighting system before abandoning ship. Thanks to their efforts, only one of the Stena's immaculate cargo tanks containing jet fuel was damaged. Crowley, the maritime company managing the Stena Immaculate, has said. Of course, this is if anybody did not see our episode last week, which I don't think anyone has because I forgot to publish it, there was a huge crash in the North Sea between two ships on last Monday, so it's been a week, and they're still trying to do the cleanup or fix what's going on. And this cleanup crew has been able to salvage 17,515 barrels of the 220,000 being carried, that according to Crowley, the maritime company managing it. The Coast Guard position remains that there continues to be no cause for concern for pollution from the tanker, a statement added. Container ship So Long struck the Stena Immaculate off the east coast of Yorkshire on last Monday morning, and a fire on the tanker burned for 3 days after the incident. A sailor from the container ship is missing and presumed dead. The third-party salvage team has confirmed that damage resulting from the container ship So Long striking the Stena Immaculate was limited to one cargo tank container of Jet A1 fuel and one ballast tank containing seawater, the statement said. At the time of the collision, the Stena Immaculate was carrying 220,000 barrels of Jet A1 fuel. Based on an assessment by the salvage team, it has been confirmed that 17,515 barrels of Jet A1 fuel have been lost due to impact and fire. The remaining cargo and bunkers are secure. Cal Hayden, vice president of Crowley, said, "Before being forced to abandon the ship, the crew had to have the dedication and presence of mind to ensure fire monitors were active in order to provide boundary cooling water to adjacent cargo tanks. Their heroic action limited damage to not only the cargo tanks impacted during the collision, they also remained fully committed to supporting the UK response to the striking of Stena Immaculate and any environmental remediation. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this article was being sarcastic. Usually, when you quotate something, you're being sarcastic. But maybe they're being completely, I can't think of the word I want to say, but they're not being the opposite of sarcastic. They're not being sarcastic. Maybe these guys are heroic for turning on the fire alarm. The Solong's Captain Vladimir Motin, 59, of Primorsky, St. Petersburg, Russia, appeared at the Hull Magistrates Court Saturday morning, which was... what day was that? Where am I? Saturday was the 15th of March. And he's been charged with gross negligence manslaughter. And he will appear at the Old Bailey on the 14th of April. So he's going to be stuck in the UK for a month, waiting to go on trial for slamming his ship into the Stena Immaculate, which was anchored in place. So for a while, we saw the video. There's no way you did that on accident. But there's my story. You have a limerick for me.
Yep, I do amazingly have a limerick I wrote in the dark. Okay, so here we go. Wrote in the dark, candle power, I can barely read it. Okay, an oil fire in the North Sea could have been more of a calamity. Rescue crews were taken to task, performed about more than you could ask, and now the water is less murky.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I hope so.
Less oil in the water.
Ooh, yeah.
Hold that great one limerick. Right out of the old.
The old noggin's working, even if the power right there, isn't. Yeah. Okay, let me roll my wheel. That's for right. Me.
No more limericks, please. I can't see.
I've got a bad pun. Well, I can get the limerick, I guess.
Okay, so let's talk about bad puns for tornadoes. More death and destruction today on a Monday. Oh boy, 40 dead. This is really bad.
Yeah,
of course,
that's pretty bad.
Probably doesn't even exist anymore in the United States. This is United States. It's from BBC.com. Brandon Drennon. So even though it's the United States, it's going to have British language. At least 40 people have died after tornadoes ripped through a swath of the U.S. Midwest and South. Missouri bore the brunt of the twisters, which began to spawn on Friday. At least 12 people have died in that state. Powerful winds in Texas and Kansas whipped up dust storms that resulted in vehicle pileups and a dozen deaths. The extreme weather, covering an area of the country that is home to more than 100 people, fanned nearly 150 deadly wildfires in Oklahoma. Fatalities were recorded in Arkansas, Alabama, and Mississippi. Parts of Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, Kentucky, North Carolina were under flood advisories. A lot of red states. Gotta say. Wonder if Mother Nature's sending a message here. More than 320,000 people across the region were without power. Has nothing to do with me, because it's way far away from where I live. States of emergency have been declared in Arkansas, Georgia, and Oklahoma. In Missouri, Governor Mike Keogh said the scale of devastation across their state is staggering. Hundreds of homes, schools, and businesses have either been destroyed or severely damaged, the statement added. A tornado killed the occupant of one residence in Butler County in the Midwestern state. I guess he's talking about Missouri. Leaving it unrecognizable as a home, according to local coroner Jim Akers. Just a debris field, he added. The floor was upside down. We were walking on walls. Woof. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of devastation. Debris was strewn across... in Oklahoma, nearly 150 wildfires driven by winds that hit 83 miles per hour, or 133 kilometers per hour, toppled several articulated lorries. There's a word you'll never hear in Texas or Oklahoma, because they don't know what the hell that means. Trucks. Big trucks. The state's chief medical examiner said at least 4 people had died. there as a result of fires and high winds. The blazes burned 170,000 acres and destroyed nearly 300 structures, including a farmhouse owned by the state's governor, Kevin Stitt. In Kansas, at least 8 people died and more than 55 vehicles crashed due to a dust storm. In Texas, another dust storm caused a pileup of about 38 cars, leaving at least 4 people dead. 6 people, bad driving again. Again, it's always a dust storm. Let's get on the road and drive really fast. So, yeah, a lot of this is self-inflicted because of drivers. 6 people have died in Mississippi as tornadoes swept through the state, and twisters killed another 3 in Alabama, including an 82-year-old woman. In Arkansas, officials reported 3 deaths and 29 people injured. Apparently, the National Guard has been deployed to Arkansas to help with storm response. And there's a message from Stinky the Clown, and there's your story on tornadoes, dust storms, and fires in the American Midwest as Mother Nature just
terrible,
cutting a wide swath of destruction and death and traffic pileups. So there's your story. Where's your pun?
Of course, Omlin here, who lives in Texas near Oklahoma, does know what a lorry is, but Omlin is, a global person. She's around.
Right.
Okay.
Who's right? It's a BBC
So,
story.
do I have a bad pun about this terrible? What do you call a tornado in a library?
I don't know.
A book cyclone. There you go. It's a pun.
That's really a bad pun.
It was a
Definitely
quick story and it was a bad pun. That's all I've got for you.
What the power's
let's
out,
roll
what
the
can I
wheel.
say?
It's very terrible that this is happening because there's people out there who aren't in control of the world. They can't control climate change. They can't control that there's tornadoes happening in the middle of March. I've never remembered this happening, but maybe I haven't been alive that long. And
It's
the hot weather, the dry, especially because it's winter, right? The dry weather causes those winds to pick up and also to continue to spread fire, because that's what we need as well. We need tornadoes and we need fiery tornadoes. Why not? It does seem like the world is trying to send a message, but as a nihilist myself, I don't believe
is coming.
I don't believe it's anybody's in control of the universe. Okay, you need a simile or an accurate metaphor for me.
All right.
For our next story, which I hope everyone stays safe in Texas and Oklahoma. Let's see if anyone will stay safe in Ukraine, as Macron says French-British blueprint does not foresee deploying a mass of soldiers. Maybe some, but not a mass. We're not emptying out Europe, to go to the east. This isn't, the fight against Sauron in The Lord of the Rings. French, though that would be pretty cool to see just a huge army just marching to the gates, the Black Gate. That would be something. We don't have a Hobbit in Russia throwing away Putin's ring.
No
sadly.
orcs.
Yeah.
We also don't have orcs, so that's a good thing.
The orcs. The French President Emmanuel Macron has fleshed out some possible missions that could be undertaken by a military support force for Ukraine that Paris and London are working to put together with other nations in a so-called coalition of the willing that could deploy after a ceasefire with Russia. So this is only after they have a ceasefire, not during the current military conflict. So first you have to convince Russia to cease fire, or Ukraine at this point, because Ukraine is very stubbornly not wanting to give up their land. What a concept. Speaking to French media ahead of the online summit that the UK hosted on the 15th of March, which was Saturday, Macron said that French-British blueprint doesn't aim to deploy a mass of soldiers in Ukraine. Instead, envisages I can't say that word, stationing troops contingents in key locations. Macron's office said on the 16th, which was yesterday on Sunday, that it couldn't provide a recording of the French leader's exchange with reporters from a regional French newspaper on Friday night. But according to La Dépêche du Midi in Le Parisien, the French president spoke of participating nations each deploying several thousand troops to key points in Ukraine. Their missions could include providing training and support to Ukrainian defenses to demonstrate long-term support for Kyiv, the reports quoted Macron saying. Macron added that the proposed contingents from countries that are members of the NATO alliance would serve as a guarantee of security for Ukraine, and that several European nations and also non-European have expressed their willingness to join such an effort when it's confirmed. Probably Canada. Canada always loves helping people out. Even though they commit a lot of war crimes. That's the secret to Canada's military. They've committed a lot of war crimes for what you would think is a nice country. La Parisienne cited Macron as saying the Moscow agreement wasn't needed for such deployment. Ukraine is a sovereign. It has asked for allied forces to be on its territory. It's not up to Russia to accept or not, he said. Following Saturday's 2-hour virtual meeting, Starmer challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin to sign up to a ceasefire in its war against Ukraine if he is serious about peace, and said allies will keep increasing the pressure on the Kremlin, including by moving planning for a peacekeeping force to an operational phase. Around 30 leaders were involved in the call, including Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Zelensky of Ukraine, of course, and leaders from Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, as well as officials from NATO and the European Union. It was the second such meeting in 2 weeks, meant to help Ukraine face a change of approach by the U.S. following the return of convicted felon Trump, as well as gauging support for any future possible peacekeeping missions. Many more countries were involved this time than the previous meeting, which was on the 2nd of March. According to Starmer, military planners will convene again in the UK on Thursday to progress political plans to support Ukraine's future security. First Thursday will be March 20th, so that's when they will supposedly having another meeting about this and maybe making some actual plans instead of just talking about what it's possible for them to do. Because I think these first two meetings were just like, so what are we looking at here, guys? What do you think we're gonna do? And this, I think they're getting closer to actually maybe signing something or deciding something. You know, it's politics. They take their time, don't they?
Right. Well, story. People die. Yeah. Well, it says we're power reliant today. Definitely. I'm going to use the metaphor of a battery. Ukraine's military is like a battery. It needs recharging every once in a while, and sometimes you have to recharge from different sources, like solar panels, and so forth. That's what it's like. It's totally like that. There's your metaphor.
Okay. Let's go to the wheel. I also have a mic drop moment, since I'm guessing you can't really look one up.
Nah, it'll just drain power to.
Yeah, so I've already got one, so don't worry about it.
My connection gets even worse when I'm sending stuff.
Oh, okay.
All right, so especially when my video processor has to play. Maybe you can send me one and I'll find it after my story on measles. What's your wheel spin come up with here?
Personal story.
Okay, measles. I don't think you've never had measles, but well. NPR.org.
You're talking about your favorite topic.
Story. Yeah, measles. Yeah, measles remain a danger to health even years after infection. This is from, like you said, this is from NPR.com. Maria Godoy. The measles outbreak in Texas and New Mexico is now close to 300 reported cases, surpassing the total number of cases in all of the U.S. in 24. The outbreak is happening in remote rural areas. There have been a few isolated cases reported in 13 other states, not related to the Texas outbreak. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the nationwide risk remains low and that vaccination is the key to prevention. Still, doctors say it's a good time to remember how dangerous and long-lasting the health consequences of measles can be. Dr. Alex Svizjanovic has been a practicing pediatrician for more than 20 years. She says she's still haunted by the memory of a teenage boy she treated at the start of her career in Utah. The boy had contracted measles as a 7-month-old when he was too young to be vaccinated. He got the virus from a child in his neighborhood who was unvaccinated, says
The things the scientists are warning about are happening. Isn't that crazy?
It was a relatively mild case of measles, and the infant recovered, she says. He grew up to be a healthy, bright kid, an honor student. Then in middle school, he started to develop troubling symptoms. He started getting lost between classes, lost like he couldn't find what class to go to next. Worried, the teen's parents took him to a series of doctors to figure out what was wrong, until a pediatric neurologist finally suspected a condition called subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, or SSPE. It is a degenerative neurological condition that typically develops 7 to 10 years after a measles infection, and almost always fatal. Stojanovic was part of the hospital team that confirmed the diagnosis. The problem is that there is no treatment for it, she says, and he basically became more and more incapacitated over time. Some 18 months after the initial diagnosis, she said, the teenager died. SSPE was once considered quite rare, but Dr. Adam Ratner, a pediatric infectious disease specialist in New York City who wrote a history of measles, said the data for the outbreak in the U.S. over the past several decades suggests that may not always have been the case. It turns out that in some age groups, especially in kids under about the age of 2, it is much more common than we thought, Ratner says. For example, a review of measles cases in California found that between 1998 and 91, SSPE cases occurred as frequently as 1 in every 1,367 cases in unvaccinated children under the age of 5. Another study that looked at outbreaks between 1990 and 91 put the rate of SSPE at roughly 1 out of every 4,600 measles cases. Vaccination prevents not just SSPE, but also serious complications that measles can cause, including pneumonia and severe brain swelling. There's a common consequence of measles infection you might not know of. It can erase your immune memory. Not only does your brain have a memory, but your immune system has a memory of all the pathogens it's encountered in the past, says Stephen Elledge, a professor in the genetics department at Harvard Medical School who studies the immune system responds to pathogens. Elledge says your immune system holds on to those memories. So the next time it encounters a virus, it knows how to fight it. But measles can destroy the cells that retain those memories. And when you lose that memory, you're no longer immune to that particular pathogen. So the next time you get it, you've got to fight that battle all over again. This effect is called immune amnesia. Elledge says it happens to some extent with every measles infection, though its severity varies widely. So whenever you get measles, you lose some of your immune memory, and the more severe your case of measles is, the longer it lasts, the more your immune system is destroyed. In one study, Elledge and his colleagues found that the unvaccinated children had lost between 11% and 73% of their antibodies, which recognize and neutralize viruses and bacteria. Other research suggests it can take 2 to 3 years for immune system to recover. In the meantime, kids might be left vulnerable to infection from other diseases, including the ones they had previously immune to. Researchers say immune amnesia helps explain one phenomenon that was documented after the introduction of measles vaccine in the 1960s. Deaths from other childhood diseases dropped dramatically. Even deaths from diseases like pneumonia and diarrhea were cut in half. Ratner says as routine childhood vaccinations vaccination rates fall, the U.S. is likely to see more and more larger measles outbreaks. There's no doubt that we will in the future see the long-term consequences of measles, he says, but he says we have a safe and powerful tool to prevent those consequences, and that tool is vaccines. There's your story of measles. Your update on how deadly they can be even years after infection.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this isn't really a personal story, but more like a story I've made up in my mind, which is, obviously I wasn't alive when measles was killing children all the time. I was lucky enough to be born after that.
Right.
But I can't imagine, my infant got sick, and then you think, oh, they got through it, they're fine. Mm-hmm. You raise this child into their teenage years, and you're like, yeah, I did it. 14 or 18 years of raising a kid. I succeeded as a parent. Oh, they're dying from something they caught when they're an infant that you couldn't do anything about. And I can imagine a lot of, this is why we got rid of measles. This is why we got vaccines for it, because it's so sad, right? Dead children everywhere. Yeah. Awful. And I don't know why anybody out there would choose that over, let's say, autism. Like, not saying vaccines give autism, because they don't, but that's what you're choosing. Oh. Dead children over, they might get autism. That's the choice you're making here. Crazy. Yeah. The people who believe, the anti-vaxxers who believe that. So.
It's a false choice to begin with.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it's a complete horse shit backed up by no scientific data.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling have.
Anyways, I'll try not to cry as we go into our next segue. Wheel, spin. Which is... reminds you of a song. So I'm sure you have a Paddy's Day song, because we're going to be talking about St. Patrick's Day. And what we really know about it. This is on Euronews by David Morcand. There's more to the holiday than just an excuse to drink pints of Guinness. More than 1,000 years, St. Patrick's Day has been celebrated in Ireland every year on the 17th of March. Over the years, the religious holiday commemorating the death of St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, has metamorphosed into a day of celebrating Irish culture through parades, music, special foods, dances, and a lot of green, the color commonly associated with the saint. Many symbols and legends associated with Ireland, such as leprechauns and shamrocks, come from St. Patrick's. Credited for bringing Christianity to then pagan Ireland, St. Patrick used Celtic symbols such as leprechauns, believed to be meddlesome fairies, to connect the country to Christianity. Legend has it that he chose shamrocks, three-leaved clovers, as a symbol of the church, and used the three leaves to explain the concept of the Holy Trinity to his followers. Today, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated worldwide in more than 200 countries. It is a national holiday in the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, the Canadian province of Newfoundland, Labrador, and the British Overseas Territory Montserrat, both of which have inhabitants with Irish descent. In the U.S., the Chicago River is dyed green annually, as St. Patrick's Day is using 40 pounds of dye, down from the original 100 to minimize environmental damage. Why don't they? I guess they could use algae, but then the algae would also cause environmental damage. Never mind. The river stays green for a few hours, down from the original duration of a week. St. Patrick's Day is also celebrated by the likes of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Argentina, and especially by the Irish diaspora. But who was St. Patrick, and why is he so famous? Here are some facts you may have not known about the guy. He was not Irish. He was born in Britain, actually Welsh even. He was born in Wales in the late 4th century. At age 16, he was kidnapped by Irish raiders who sold him as a slave to tend sheep. He escaped, went back to Britain, and took refuge at a monastery. Years later, he became a priest and traveled across Europe, studying Christianity for 16 years. Eventually, he returned to Ireland to convert the then pagan country to Christianity. St. Patrick's color was blue, not green, though also back in the 4th century, the color green did not exist. I'm not going to go into the details, but let me tell you, the color green did not exist. Or I should say, maybe it was the color blue didn't exist. Oh yeah, you're right. The color blue didn't exist. So I think this is wrong. I think this is a false fact. Because blue didn't exist as a color. Conceptually. We'll see. Well, I'm not a fact checker.
It was probably
well, today we associate
color blue. Right.
Yeah, maybe. While today we associate St. Patrick with everything Irish with the color green, the saint was originally depicted wearing blue robes. That's because blue robes in ancient pictures detail kind of this innocent, lordly color. So I can paint, you in the color red. Doesn't mean anything that you only wore red, In fact, the particular shade of blue known today as azure blue was originally called St. Patrick's blue. Green became popular in the 18th century when discontent with English rule grew, and the Irish independence movement started using the shamrock linked to St. Patrick as a symbol of unity and resistance. The color green became a symbol of sympathy with Irish independence. However, today azure blue, or rather St. Patrick's blue, remains Ireland's official heraldic color. His real name was not Patrick. Wait, that's not Patrick? His original name was Maewyn Succat, which is very Welsh, and was born to Christian parents in Roman Britain. His father was a deacon and his grandfather a priest, but St. Patrick, according to his own account, was not religious as a child. He was renamed Patricus after becoming a priest, which he then changed to Patrick upon his return to Ireland. Yeah, Patricus.
He's
Patricus.
a deacon.
I am...
Alright, there's my song.
Popular St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. Popular legend has it that St. Patrick stood on a hilltop, Croagh Patrick, now an important site of pilgrimage in Ireland, and banished all the snakes from Ireland using a wooden staff. Over 100,000 people climbed the holy mountain every year. However, scientists say the island nation was never home to any snakes. Wow! Ireland, the anti-Australia. The banishing of the snakes, however, could be a true or metaphorical level in the eradication of paganism from Ireland and the triumph of Christianity. I think it was an artistic license. Why do I exist? You can see me. Thank you for opening your eyes to the truth of St. Patrick's Day. In 1903, Irish law declared St. Patrick's Day as a day of religious observance. Up until the 1970s, pubs were closed on the 17th of March as per Irish law. In 1995, the Irish government began a national campaign to use St. Patrick's Day to drive tourism into the country and display Irish culture to the world. Today, it's celebrated as a day of drinking, feasting, and parades where many dress up as leprechauns. Although St. Patrick's Day has been celebrated for over a millennia in Ireland, the famous parades, which have now become the heartbeat of the holiday festivities, originally began in America in the 18th century by Irish immigrants. That's probably also because most of Ireland emptied out to go to America. Like, a lot of people left Ireland.
Right.
So maybe that's where all the Irish people were in the 18th century. I bet some went back, right, after Ireland got over the potato famine and being subjugated by Britain. They were like, well, I'll go back now. The first definite St. Patrick's Day parade took place
back and forth, right?
Yeah. In 1737 in Boston. That was before America even existed as a country. It was still a colony back then. Massachusetts. But the modern day parades we see today have their roots in the 1962 parade celebration in New York. Yet again, before the colony got independence. For disadvantaged Irish immigrants in America, forced to escape Ireland because of a famine and unable to find jobs in America upon their arrival due to racism, St. Patrick's Day became a source of pride and celebration, a way to connect to their Irish roots. And finally, our seventh fact you may not have known about St. Patrick. Nobody knows where he's buried. Although several sites identify themselves as St. Patrick's burial place, no one knows exactly where the saint is buried. Popular accepted locations include Down Cathedral in the town of Downpatrick in Northern Ireland, which is also the burial place for Ireland's other saints, Brigid in Columba, as well as Saul. However, some state that St. Patrick may have been buried in Glastonbury Abbey in England. But we don't know, and it's okay. It's not important where his body is. It's important you go there to celebrate his life wherever you see fit, even if it is on top of the hill where he banished all the snakes. Okay? But there you go. There's your...
the snake guy.
There's your list and facts about St. Patrick's Day. Give me a song.
Reminds me of the song Deacon Blues. You said he was a deacon and that he wore blue. So, the song Deacon Blues, learned by Steely Dan.
Okay.
Learn to work the saxophone and I play just what I feel. Drink scotch whiskey all night long and die behind the wheel.
That sounds a little too Irish, I think.
For the winners in the world. Let's slander the Irish. They got a name for the winners of the world, and I want a name when I lose. They call Alabama the Crimson Tide. Call me the Deacon Blues. Hey, that's a song it reminds me of.
Well, I guess if it was really an Irish song, they wouldn't be drinking Scotch whiskey. They would be drinking Guinness.
Yeah. We'd be drinking Irish whiskey. Yeah. Well, anyway, the Scottish part of Ireland, right? There is Ulster, which is the Scottish part of Ireland, which is now Northern Ireland. They would probably drink Scotch whiskey. Anyway, and this day in history, the year 180. Oh, you got to spin the wheel for your deal.
Yeah, I'm spinning it now.
Thing.
Oh, perfect. A non sequitur. That should be easy enough. Let's go.
There you go. In the year 180, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who became the symbol of the West in the golden age of the Roman Empire, died at the age of 58 in the year 180, a long time ago. Moving way forward to 1776, British General William Howe evacuated Boston after a successful siege by American revolutionaries led by George Washington. I've heard of him. 1861, in Turin, Italy, after more than 10 years of revolution led by such figures as Giuseppe Garibaldi, a parliament assembled and officially proclaimed the unified Kingdom of Italy. That was in 1861. In 1902, American golfer Bobby Jones was born, the first player to retrieve a Grand Slam. Back then, a Grand Slam was winning the U.S. Open, the British Open, the U.S. Amateur, and the British Amateur. They didn't have.
Oh, so not the Australia. They didn't have Australia yet.
No, there were. Well, no. Australia wasn't part of the Grand Slam in golf. That's in tennis.
Wait, they didn't have the French either? I thought French people loved tennis. That's crazy.
This is golf.
Oh, sorry. You're right. I'm thinking of tennis and golf together.
The golf Grand Slam.
Yeah, France having a golf tournament. I'm not sure about that. They do have a lot of fields.
The French Grand Slam is there's no French Grand Slam. The tennis Grand Slam is the French Open, the Australia Open, the U.S. Open, and Wimbledon, which involves 4 different countries. But the golf Grand Slam, 3 of them are all played in the United States. So it's totally U.S. centric. You have the Masters, the U.S. Open, and the PGA Championships, plus the British Open, which they call the Open Championship. But that's the golf new Grand Slam. The old one was a little different. Anyway, happy birthday to Bobby Jones. 1905, Eleanor Roosevelt married her distant cousin Franklin D. Roosevelt. She was the niece of Teddy Roosevelt, so she married her distant cousin. They had kids who all looked the same. So the Roosevelts, I think they were distant cousins, like fourth cousins.
Yeah, maybe.
Not really, yeah. Not that closely relative, but still capable of passing on a lot of genetic mutations. In 1919, Nat King Cole, an American musician who first came to prominence as a jazz pianist, was born. He reached enormous popularity as a warm, relaxed, somewhat breathy voice, ballad singing. Happy birthday to Nat King Cole. 1921, British activist Marie Stopes and her husband opened the first birth control clinic in England, a little facility called the Mother's Clinic for Constructive Birth Control. Don't want to have that baby? You don't have to. 1938, Poland issued an ultimatum to Lithuania in an attempt to settle the territorial dispute of the city of Vilnius. This was in 1938. 1958, the first solar-powered satellite, Vanguard 1, was launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The small satellite, it weighs less than 4 pounds, stopped transmitting in 1964. It hadn't quite worked all technology, but hey, 6 years of solar-powered battery, pretty good. Probably the battery itself was not very good, I'm guessing. Of course, we started launching nuclear satellites, nuclear-powered. We don't have to worry about where they land. They're not coming back.
Hopefully, yeah.
In 1969, on this day, Golda Meir became the 4th Prime Minister of Israel and the first woman. 2000, a fire broke out at the headquarters of the Doomsday Cult movement for the restoration of 10 Commandments of God in Kanugu, Uganda, and eventually led to the discovery of more than 775 bodies, many of which have been poisoned. The cult's leaders are believed to have killed their followers after a promised apocalypse did not occur. So that happened in 2000, very reminiscent of Jonestown in Guyana, South America. 2005, American author Andre Norton died at the age of 93. He wrote more than 130 sci-fi and fantasy adventure novels for juveniles and adults. And today is St. Patrick's Day.
Of course.
Right,
woohoo! Get your green on.
Patron saint of Ireland. Died on this day. The patron saint died on this day in 461, according to legend, and now his feast day is celebrated widely in Ireland and the United States. Warrior Green. What else happened on this day in 1992 in South Africa on March 17th? Nearly 69% of white South African voters ended apartheid. That's right. Voters backed FW de Klerk's reforms, which included the repeal of racially discriminated laws and effectively endorsed the dismantling of apartheid. Not that that discouraged old Elon Musk and his daddy, because they want to practice that in the United States. They want to turn us into apartheid South Africa. Feature biography, Mia Hamm, however you pronounce her name, American athlete, soccer player, was born March 17th in 1972. She's turning 53 today, as Britannica is having a time lapse. They still thinks it's 2024. She's turning 23. She was born in Selma, Alabama. Did not know that. Other birthdays today, besides Nat King Cole, it's Rudolph Nureyev's birthday, Soviet-born dancer. John Wayne Gacy's birthday. Oh, remember the serial killers?
Yeah, don't forget the serial killers. They also were born. They didn't just pop out of the ground like leprechauns.
Yeah, we gotta remember their birthdays because you gotta celebrate them somehow. I have no idea why they want to keep track of their birthdays. Totally non-events as far as I'm concerned. 1948 is the birthday of William Gibson, American-Canadian author, and Alexander McQueen, British fashion designer, born in 1969. Our national
McQueen,
day is only 2 days, mercifully. McQueen, that's a name.
He's a very famous. He's a very famous designer.
Fashion.
Yeah.
Right. And it's National Corned Beef and Cabbage Day. That's all it is. So.
I wish I could have some corned beef. Oh, I love corned beef. Maybe it's because of you, but still.
So go have some.
I don't know where to find it. Maybe they have it today because it's St. Patrick's Day. Maybe the Netherlands sells it there. Yep.
Those are your days. Those are your nonsense. Those are your idiotic things I had to say. Our total blackout here in the western part of the western United States. For March 17th, 2025 on Before Corned Beef and Cabbage.
And this is, of course, Ben Allison here from the Netherlands and Roger from the west coast of the U.S. No international UN observances today. So go out there, drink a Guinness, go swimming in a green lake, and, I don't know, get pinched by people because you forgot to wear green, I guess. Go celebrate St. Patrick's Day, even if you're not Irish, because who cares? It's just a time to party, I guess. We will see you tomorrow for Good Tuesday News Day, hopefully with some power.
Did I miss your non sequitur?
Yeah.
Your non sequitur.
Our non sequitur. This is the non sequitur. I'm transitioning away from anything you've said, not related to what you're talking about whatsoever. And we will see you tomorrow for Good Tuesday News Day. We're going to cover all the good news stories, hopefully with some lighting, so you can actually, because to be fair, we had his video on, but it was so dark you wouldn't have been able to see him anyways. So we just decided to do a PNG tuber here. And we will see you then. Yeah. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know when we go live. And I don't know if you want to watch the mic drop moment. I did send you the link if you want to click on it. But here is our mic drop moment. It's just the tornadoes, just footage of the tornadoes, because I think it's wild that there are tornadoes happening right now in March.
Northwest Texas, ripping roofs off buildings and flipping RVs.
It's also too
hot.
hot.
Weather changes.
In the Wichita, Kansas area over the weekend, wreaking havoc on the
It's almost equinox. Usually equinox storms are pretty common.
Video capturing one of the quick-moving funnel clouds.
And the planets did align earlier, you know. So there's a lot of celestial bodies telling us what's going on.
Devastating winds.
Yeah, look at that. Terrible.
Miles per hour.
It went from a storm to severe thunderstorm warning to a tornado in minutes.
Officials
yes, it was so quick.
And up to 1,000
it dropped down,
damaged.
destroyed the neighborhood, and then left.
All my tools are gone.
Andover resident Guy Quinn breaking down as he recalls the tornado closing in. His 11-year-old daughter just down the street at a neighbor's home, but unreachable.
It's scary, guys.
Really scary.
The Quinn family all surviving without injury. Officials crediting early warnings with 0 tornado deaths.
The thing about tornadoes
the
is
weekend wasn't without tragedy.
Non-controllable.
Beth and Ellen Short say their son Gavin, a top meteorology student at the University of Oklahoma, called to say he was storm chasing Friday with 2 friends, Nicholas Nair and Drake Brooks.
It's like a second family for him, and he was in the right place. He found his people.
But as the group was driving back to campus, authorities say their car hydroplaned, putting them directly in the path of a semi-truck.
They were all watching each other's trackers, and they noticed that all 3 of their beacons had stopped moving.
This is just the worst nightmare for us and 2 other sets of parents.
Authorities say all
Terrible.
3 young men died at the scene.
We want people to know that he was so good and so funny and so giving, and we love him so much.
Morgan joins us tonight from Dallas. And Morgan, there's a terrible irony when we think about those young storm chasers, because storm chasers are.
The thing is, they weren't killed by the storm.
Tornado-related deaths.
They were killed by a hydroplane.
Weather service about what they're seeing in the field, so the
warnings badly timed semi.
Well, the weather caused.
In Kansas, officials
weather caused the hydroplaning.
But tragedy still struck when we talk about those 3 young men.
Yeah, Tom, you're absolutely right. Those 3 young men that were leaving the storm zone lost their lives.
Yeah, I mean,
depressing. Over Kansas, officials
tornadoes are not
significant
happy advanced, I would argue.
Storm warning technology, rather.
No.
I should know that this twister struck almost 31 years to the day after another infamous tornado back in 1991.
Really, 30 years ago to the day.
People dead in that small Kansas town. Tom, the town's only tornado siren on that day in 91 was not operating. Since then, we've seen a night and day difference.
Thank God that they improved that.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.